Alright, so in this video I'm going to talk about three key things that Aristonet's CEO said in their last earnings call that most investors are missing. Okay, one, she covered memory and the memory debate and the debate upon, how long is it going to last? How's it going to go? What does this memory cycle look like? Basically what she said is, it's going to get worse. They're just having to buy it at ridiculous prices, take it on the chin and smile. Let me just reiterate. She said it's going to get worse, which means margins for companies like MU specifically is the one I'm talking about. Micron, she mentioned Micron in the earnings call, which means their margins are going to increase. Okay. And she said it's going to last for years to come. She said for years. This isn't like the next 12 months. This isn't the next 18 months. This is multiple fucking years in the future. This means Micron is set to let's just put it like this. What's their 2-year forward PE if it's going to get worse? Two on a company that's growing 100+%? I don't care if it's a commodity. I don't care. That's just below PayPal. Better margins, a bajillion times the growth, and a staple point of AI. Now, 2 on AMD. She said deployments were maybe a year and a half ago, 99% NVIDIA. She said now they're about 20%. What happens when Helios hits? Does AMD take 40%? 40%? So they double? What about if they go 50? And, here's the crazy thing. Even if they go 50-50 with NVIDIA, NVIDIA's still going to grow. Which means, because if you think about the demand Micron spoke about in their earnings, and all these other big name AI players, you got to listen to if you want to encapsulate the whole AI revolution, you got to ALAB, ASML, NVIDIA. You got to go down Vertiv. You got to go down the whole Coherence. You got to go down the whole list of all the AI companies, Aristonet, and listen to all of their earnings calls. It will change the game for your life. Now, my third point here is she talked about software. Okay. She said she doesn't see a case where AI is eating software. It's just making it a lot better. Now, these are companies like your CRMs, your Adobe, your ServiceNow, Zscaler, CrowdStrike, yada yada, Palo Alto, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. You go down a whole list of major software, Apple, you can see it in their earnings, right? Regardless if they went down, after, their earnings and everything like that. It doesn't matter if the share price went down. They all had better numbers with accelerating growth, with them talking about accelerating growth. Like if you go back to Salesforce earnings call, they're like, in H2, we will see a sharp acceleration in our revenue growth and earnings growth. ServiceNow, still talking, massive. But what's beautiful about ServiceNow is they've been making some acquisitions to make their company, not for the sake of revenue growth, as Bill McDermott would say, just making the company better overall, making their offerings better, which will in turn translate to revenue growth, earnings growth, share price growth. You cannot miss these things. You have to listen to these earnings calls. You go back to all these earnings calls of all these great companies. And they're all saying the same freaking thing. Acceleration and growth. And like, you might have the argument that you can make about, let's say you make the argument that you can make about hyperscalers not spending as much or pulling back if we have a recession, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, possibly, right? Yes. Okay. But let's go with Palantir. Let's go to Palantir. Palantir only has, 962 customers. I think that's what Alex Karp said on their last earnings call. So we'll just go with 900. We'll just go between 900 and 1,000 customers. I think 962, 965. I can't remember. It was something close to that, right? So we'll go back to that. It's not them gaining more customers that throws me. What it is how much more every customer is spending as AI gets better, as Palantir gets better as a software company, as their companies, not even software companies, just regular everyday, Eaton, all these AARP, all these companies they help, I think, was it General Mills? General Mills is just a junk food company. Let's be real. General Mills is a junk food company. Home building companies and all these things, right? And we go back to all these earnings calls and we listen to all these earnings calls and we make the realization that, oh shit, there's so much more. There's so much more. Don't get scared out. Buy every dip in all these great companies with great earnings growth, with great balance sheets. I think Aristonet's got over $13 billion and no debt. Buy every dip in companies like that. Meta going down? Why? Because they're spending a bunch on CapEx? It's not coming from the top down. I got to say that over and over and over again in every single video I make, even though I don't make a lot. It's not a top-down AI spend. It's a bottom-up. When you go to AppLovin's earnings call and he talks about all these companies scaling through their ads, through the Axon model with AppLovin, they're spending more and more on ad spend. Why? Because they're getting a really good return on ad spend, a really good ROAS. All right? And their businesses are growing. So they feed in to AppLovin, who's growing as a business as well. And by the way, a lot, right? And when you couple that with a company like Palantir, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and all these companies, and they're all talking about their growth, and they're all talking about how they're helping their other companies grow their businesses, run more efficient, be more profitable, right? Especially like a Palantir. They're providing the freaking value, okay? AppLovin is not the same as Palantir at all, but is providing a service of superior quality for a lot of smaller businesses. Kind of like Palantir is providing up here for bigger businesses, superior quality, which is allowing their companies to run more profitably and grow faster. Which is kind of what AppLovin's doing down here with all these smaller companies through ads, right? And while more and more people spend time gaming and social media and all that, there's going to be more businesses advertising on those platforms. Why? Because people are spending more time on them. And it's kind of like a circular motion, People spend more time because they see the ads for things that they need. You know what I mean? So when we break this down, we have to understand that AI spend isn't the hyperscalers spending all this money on chips and data centers and stuff. No. The hyperscalers are taking the money from the people who are spending through cloud usage, advertising, whatever. Let's translate it from the bare minimum here. These small companies are advertising with Axon through AppLovin's platform to gaming and, whatever else they do. But mostly they're on games, right? And then AppLovin to keep their model running correctly and tweaking it, making it a little better and a little bit better and a little bit better over time, they're spending more money with whatever hyperscaler they're using or whatever model they're, they built their own model, right? But they're using cloud. They're using some form of GPU data center stuff from some company. So basically, they're funneling the money from these little companies through AppLovin to one of them big boys. Who's, guess what, spending? Because companies like AppLovin are like, fuck, we need more GPUs. We need more compute. We need more because our business is growing extraordinarily because all these other smaller businesses are growing extraordinarily. Now, I get it. If we have a recession, guess what? We might have a serious compression in share price on a lot of companies. However, you have to think long term on this. It'll come back. It'll come back stronger. And these companies are going to turn around and start spending again. And if you get major dips, you better be ready to buy, baby. I'm just saying, because if you translate just what I just said from AppLovin or from Palantir up into the major cloud provider companies, Oracle, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, all these other companies, what is happening? You know what I mean? I think, I should go over all the solar companies' earnings calls and other energy producers and see what they're saying about their demand. You know what I mean? And you hear all these other companies talking about data centers and this and that. I think what one must do to seriously outperform everybody else in this scenario is to go through every little chunk of every little AI company using AI, even regular companies like John Deere, Eaton, Fastenal, and just listen to all the earnings calls of all the public companies and see what they're saying. If they're all pointing in one direction, you know where to position yourself, where the money's going. What are the companies that are going to benefit biggest? And then every time a company who is benefiting from this spend goes down on a dip for whatever silly freaking reason, like MU. I mean, what's the 2-year forward P on that? 2? Really? Seriously, think about it. If they did, $22 billion in revenue or something like that, right? And I know they did over $13 billion in net. And if it's going to get worse, so meaning if it's going to get worse for companies like Aristanet and other chip makers, even though Aristanet's more of a network provider, but let's just go to the bare bone chip makers, phone makers, blah, blah, blah. Maybe listen to Skyworks Solution and Cirrus Logic and some of these other, smaller chip companies that make chips for phones and stuff. We'll see what they're saying about memory, because small devices still need memory. All I'm saying is you get a dip in one of these companies that money is just flowing into like crazy. You buy that shit. And you don't look back and you just wait for it to recover. And if it goes lower, buy a little bit more. If you don't have any more money, hold and let it keep growing. Hold and just let it do what it's going to do. Because selling for a loss right now on great companies is just, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. You see what's happening. They're making stuff better. So, like Jay Shree said, software is not getting eaten by AI. It's being enhanced. All right, y'all.